This is probably one of the most intriguing and amazing things that I've ever witnessed in my life. But enough about the movie Freddy Got Fingered. Let's talk about this album. All right, we are reviewing an album that was requested by one of our viewers, and that is the self-titled album by the underground St. Louis, Missouri indie rock group Based Out. And according to their Bandcamp page, they are an 8-piece group featuring saxophonists, trombonists, violinists, and a keyboardist, along with the other 4 members who play guitar, bass, and drum. And they're not a ska band.
Yeah.
How about that, right? So their sound was classified to us as experimental 5th wave emo, post-rock. So naturally, this is why I brought you on, because you're a fan of like emo. You're our emo boy, if you will.
I am the sad boy of the podcast.
Mitch is sad right now.
I could be the happiest I've ever been in my life, and there's always going to be that sad boy in me. And I'm never going to not listen to American football, is my thing.
So we have this multi-instrumental indie punk band here in New Jersey called Teenage Halloween, which you are into as well, right?
Yeah, I am friendly with some of the members. They're all amazing individuals. Sick band live. It's really been cool to see them grow.
We reviewed the self-titled they put out a few years ago, and I recall kind of enjoying it as well. Let's get into this album. So it opens up with a track which is called Ortho. And there's a lot to unpack here, because the intros has a light guitar rhythm before the brass and like the string instruments are kind of slowly brought in. And about halfway through, it explodes into this like somber, grungy instrumentation, utilizing the horns and violins as well. So throughout this album, I kept thinking to myself of this band I saw live about 10 years ago called Murder by Death. And they incorporate other instruments like cellos and mandolins and accordions into this gothic indie folk sound. But they both share like this moody, southern-esque indie element. So how would you classify this sound that they're doing? Is it emo?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely call it emo. It's like different tracks. As I listened to it, I was like, oh yeah, like this band. So, I mean, on Ortho alone, I was saying, like, of course, Teenage Halloween. There's this band called Glass Beach. Their songs will maybe be like 6 minutes long, similar to this band. And it's like there's so many different things going on in the song that it's almost like there's a part for everyone to enjoy in it. And I was really feeling it with this when it goes from I try not to clench my jaw too tightly, and then it goes into that just like explosion with like the horns and the instrumentation. It's just like, I'm gonna keep talking about it throughout this entire review, but like the instrumentation just like fucking blew me away.
I agree with you. I thought to myself when I'm listening to this, I'm just picturing a bunch of like young barefoot like kids like in overalls, like watching them perform at a dive bar that's like 20 feet away from like a crocodile infested swamp. And they're like jamming out with their arms around each other, spilling gumbo and like moonshine everywhere. But I know there's a stereotype that it sounds like it's bad, but I think it's at the same time that sounds fucking fun. Much like I imagine it is to see these guys live. And I also got like this other emo band that's really like emo instrumentational or really out there sectional with their sounds. Remember this band called Say Anything?
Of course I know Say Anything. You know, I didn't even really think about that, but yeah, I definitely see that.
Let's talk about the singer/guitarist. His name is Jasen. When the first song comes on, we'd mentioned, I'm like, oh, he sounds like kind of like Morrissey, because he's got this kind of baritone similar to his vocals.
Bruni.
Yeah. But when he did more spoken word singing, quote unquote, I started thinking of another group, which I'll mention later. So hold that thought. The next song we're going to talk about is a song called Call It Response Part 2. Part 1 is instrumental leading up to this part. And it changes gears slightly as the music got more chaotic and punkish to match Jasen's harsher vocals. And his lyrics are very clever, personal, and intriguing to me. And there's like also a random salsa keyboard part in the middle of this song. I fucks with it. Do you like that whole thing where like the song is like long and there's like all these things happening, particularly that song? What'd you think of that one?
Yeah, like I like when songs do that because it's not just like the same thing for however many minutes. There's enough to keep you interested. I listen to this throughout the weeks. The song's playing and then there's a switch. I'm not zoning it out. It's cool.
What makes this band so interesting to me is not just the instrumentation, but we mentioned earlier is this way this guy writes these lyrics. Like, they're really poetic in the way he conveys this spoken word thing. The song Snow, for example, has such great imagery in the spoken word. And I'm going to quote, he says, my teeth chatter to the rhythm of a fork caught in a garbage disposal. All is silent, save the snow parting beneath my damp shoes. Dude, I never thought about expressing it that way. And he really goes for that obligatory hardcore screaming vocals at the end, which I know you're a fan of, Mitch.
Oh, yeah.
You were not expecting that, but you were pleasantly surprised at the same time.
Yeah, Snow definitely stood out for me. I compared it to Slint, their album Spiderland specifically. It's just like the same sort of like delivery, because I haven't really thought about Slint in a while. So for them to convey to me like, oh yeah, Slint exists, it's like pretty cool,
Well, the band I was going to say is, with the fact that they're doing noise rock and they're mixing it with like art rock sounds and different music sections in each song, I was going to compare them to that English band we reviewed last year, Black Midi.
I actually compared them to Black Midi in my notes as well, specifically for Jimmy the Anthill Prince. I was like, it goes ridiculously hard, but it sort of did remind me of Black Midi with the organized chaos sort of thing, but I easily prefer this over Black Midi.
Yeah, Jimmy the Anthill Prince, which is closer to the end of the album, is such a funky rock group that they're doing that song. And it made me think with bass lines alone of the band The Pixies in a way. And it's a pretty intense story about ants. The lyrics are so maniacal as he's shouting, there's invaders in the garden, mother. They're crawling in the grass, digging tiny foxholes to enrage us as we pass. It's so crazy. I'm digging it. I don't know if I can relate to that, but I can't tell you how many times I've said the words, some guy saw that I had cigarettes. Now the fucker won't leave me alone.
Yeah, very real.
That actually happened to me a while ago. I was hanging out outside of this quick stop. Hey there, just want to remind you to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to get updated whenever we post a new review or ranking video. It only takes a second. If you had a YouTube channel, I'd subscribe to it. Now back to our video already in progress. I woke up like naked on someone's roof and I was like, not again. Anyway, back to this album. The song I was talking about is called Final Nail. Several changes in the tempo. It's punky at times. There's blues rock moments. There's like a middle part where there's some like soloing from each brass thing where that match like the bass chord progression that's happening. It kind of reminded me of like this like high school like concert band. Like, when you go to see like a high school band and they're like warming up. Kind of that, because that part happens for so long. It's still pretty ambitious to say the least.
I really love that for a number of reasons. The first one I've noted is that they reference one of my favorite bands, which is the Microphones. This specific lyric had to do with like laying in bed and listening to the distortion of the Microphones, because there's a lot of distortion in their songs. On this track, I was thinking about how the spoken word part reminds me of this band called Listener. It's very much spoken word with instrumentation in the background, but his like delivery is like pretty raw, you know what I mean?
Well, it's 9 tracks, so there's not a lot to talk about, but there's so much happening in these 45 minutes of music. But I'm really impressed with what this band is doing, and they're not really remotely famous whatsoever. They're so talented and so unique what they're doing. Any success that they get, they deserve it.
Easily. Like, I was genuinely surprised with like the production on here and just like how cohesive the instrumentation. Like in every single song, I'm like, holy shit, like the horns and the strings. It's just like whenever that hits, I get so full of emotion.
What would you rate it then?
Man, I would easily buy this record. I'll buy it on Bandcamp if I can't get a vinyl or CD. I want to see these guys live so bad. So, you know, if you guys are listening, let us know if you're coming to New Jersey, New York, tri-state area, Pennsylvania. We'll come through.
Well, Mitch is echoing everything I was going to say, the same thing. I want to see these guys live, and I'm going to get this album. I'll buy this as well. I really recommend you guys out there go to their Bandcamp and purchase this album. All the links will be there in this video below. Basically, the way Bandcamp works, you can pay what you want, but give till it hurts. This album needs to be heard. And if you guys know other local bands, because as you can see, we do local bands, underground bands, or if it's your band as well, let us know. Email us. Till next time, this has been Jarrell and Mitch saying, listen to Spaced Out.
Out.
Like and subscribe, folks.